for the Snap Report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? My name is not Barbershop Jay. I am Double J, and I am your host for the day. Here's what's happening. Deshaun Watson is a Cleveland Brown. That's right. Take that for March Madness. And speaking of March Madness, there's plenty to get into with that as well. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my cat from the NYC, a.k.a. Rucker Park. Bro, Rich. What's happening?
Double J, I think you're going to do a fantastic job filling, and we shouldn't tell everybody what he's doing, but we know that barbershop right now is chilling out with Jerry, and they're enjoying some Mai Tai, some tequilas, and, you know, some other various forms of entertainment perhaps right now. So we're happy for him, and I'm honored to be on the platform, and you're going to do a wonderful job hosting us today. We have no doubt about that, sir.
I appreciate that. And without further ado, my guy further up north is the one and only DOC Doc. What's going on?
I'm a little hurt, man. My boys got put out by Duke, man. I knew it probably was going to happen, but I mean, hey, I was trying to remain optimistic, but you know, it turned out how I thought it would.
Believe me, right now, I'm we're 3 minutes
empathizing,
and so I'm, you know, around tournament time. I'll jump right into it. Around tournament time, it's always I go to conference allegiance rather than on top of just the individual team itself. So we beat each other up enough, you know, during those you know, however many months of the year anyway. So at that point, it's you know, I personally got tired of hearing all the other conferences chant, you know, their respective acronym. So that, with that being said, we'll jump into topic number one here today, and that is, of course, going to be about Deshaun Watson himself. Look, speaking of a roller coaster ride, we were in the group chat, of course, bro, Rich, you know, all of a sudden it went from the Browns are out of the running, and then it looked like I kept telling you pie in the face. I kept saying pie in the face. Oh no! Now look what's going on. Now we're stuck. Not only are we stuck with Baker, but you know, Baker puts out his apology letter, or his you know, I'll see you later. I'm not the bad guy. Love me. And then to management, he puts his 2 weeks in. And so at one point in time, you know, I thought First Energy was going to need to implode and they were going to need to move town again. But instead, out of the woodwork, here comes, not only is it back on, but it's done. I almost feel like it was just like that. It was almost like a slot machine, you know, from the time you pressed it to the time it's over with. So, bro, Rich, what do you got to say about that? It happened.
Double J, here's where we are with it. I have to start by saying and reminding the listeners that we have said consistently, we've tried to make a point on this program consistently, that these are not your grandpappy's Browns. And I think that this move proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Here's the franchise going all in on what is ultimately a franchise quarterback. You cannot argue with any move, any draft pick, anything. You can't say they're mortgaging the future. This is right now. And as we talked about on this same program, this was inevitable, because when you have that kind of talent on the field, somebody has to be blamed. And it was not going to be the front office that was going to take the blame. And ultimately, and unfortunately for Baker, he was in a situation in which he could not deliver what the fans and the ownership and ultimately everybody was hoping for, was for this team to finally ascend, to finally get perhaps even to a conference final or perhaps even a Super Bowl, and showed themselves worthy of all of the things that have gone on with them over the last several years, and they've made it through. So I think this proves that the right management is in place, the right coaching is in place. We know the right players are in place, and now we believe we have the right quarterback in place. Let's see what happens if we don't have even more people than the last several years jumping on the bandwagon, including our esteemed host, who is hanging out with Jerry in Dallas. I mean, even our host may jump on the bandwagon and be hollering, dog pounding a few.
Absolutely. And TJ, just
Doc might even holler dog pound.
I'm thinking he might change allegiances real quick. But TJ, shoot your email into the chat there, and I'll shoot you the invite. And in the meantime, of course, Doc, what do you got to say, Mr. Lion? Are you ready to, hey,
ready to lose to the Browns? Yeah, I'm ready. You know, I'm ready. I don't expect much out of the Lions. We'll still ride for them, but I don't expect much. But what we just talking about, that Baker and the whole Deshaun Watson swap, how good that would be for the Browns. Like I said, you got the addition of Deshaun Watson. Now you got Amari Cooper. They're looking like a threat. It's all going to come down to Deshaun now. Is he going to be the quarterback they need him to be, or is he going to be another flop? I hope not, because him on the Browns looks
now
pretty
he
good.
plays for the Browns. Now people are bringing in the word flop. When has the word flop and Deshaun Watson ever been associated until haters of the Browns bring that kind of thing into play?
It's not, but I just don't want to see another good quarterback get to somewhere like Cleveland and don't produce.
Here we go.
I want the best for Deshaun Watson. That's all I'm saying.
He went to the best situation and the best team for him.
Yeah.
He needs to get out of the limelight. He needs to go to Cleveland and just play football. And that was the best setup for him. Why do you think he turned down? He ultimately realized, as Double J introduced the subject to us, why do you think he did it like that? He realized that he had everybody, he was sold on the franchise. Now, granted, he may not have been sold on the location, but for what he needs right now at this time in his life to repair his image, he needs to go somewhere where he's not worried about what the nightlife is like, what's the restaurant. He needs to go there and play football and remind people like yourself who are now using the word, some kind of other word, bust and all these other words. We got to remove that from the dictionary that relates to Deshaun Watson. He needs to go back to being a football player. No better place for him to do that than Cleveland.
Let's hope so.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with you here. We sat for months listening to our esteemed host, who, just for those wondering, the last, he had attempted to hire the Rented Mules Association, and the kettle turned out to be too heavy, and so he was last seen in Dallas, leaving the Fort Worth Stockyards area, with a kettle heading northbound. So it looks like, potentially our host, who said that, on countless occasions that this would never work, it would never happen.
That's what he said. He did say it.
So one of the biggest knocks on Doc's Lions is that they had a team at one point in time with Stafford, and what they refused to do is what I believe something that the Browns are attempting to do, which is officially going all in.
Facts.
And so to Bro Rich's point, you can't do anything more than applaud him as far as the rationale behind of all the destinations that he could have gone to. Believe it or not, the shores of Lake Erie are probably his best bet as far as getting away from it all, and certainly being able to have and be granted a second chance. I do know, and I have read that there unfortunately are folks that are signing petitions and that type of thing, but in the Cleveland area specifically. But again, this is a guy that was not found guilty, so I'm not sure what we're signing petitions on. I do understand that there are civil cases out there, but at least at the moment, he's an innocent human being, and so whether he's apparently guilty in the court of public opinion, that's their own accord, and it doesn't take anything away from those that actually do go through those traumatic circumstances. But again, if you're proven innocent in the actual courtroom, then I do have a problem with you siding on the still going after the man, because at that point that says more about you than it does him.
Ben Roethlisberger. That's
Well,
all I'm saying.
well,
Ben
there you go.
Roethlisberger, facts.
Exactly. So
That's it.
yeah.
And you can best believe that the Browns took all of that into consideration, knowing that
still
there were
signed.
going to be protests. But if anyone has ever been to Cleveland, as you all have, you understand that nobody's going to protest quite a long time in January on Lake Erie in front of the Brown Stadium. They won't be protesting for long. They might go out there with a sign, but after that wind hits them, they'll be running back to their cars and that protest will be over. It's all been factored in that the Browns understand what they're dealing with. They've had to have done some serious introspection, understanding what any franchise that signed him was going to be facing. But as Double J said to us and reminded us, and this is important, his matter went before a grand jury. And remember now, this is the American system of jurisprudence where it's rumored, it's said out loudly. I shouldn't say it's rumored, it's said out on every television show. Everyone has heard this saying. You in America, you can indict a ham sandwich. So if a man is accused 22 times and the justice system investigates him in some county, I believe it's in Texas somewhere, they investigated him, and the Houston DA, from what we're made to understand, comes back with a no bill, no indictment, then we should understand that the justice system has looked at this. They have taken a look. They know better than we, and certainly the justice system is highly inclined to convict people of Deshaun Watson's persuasion. The fact that he beat that case, if you will call it beating that case, because no bill was returned, we shouldn't even bring that up again. Now let's deal with whether or not he met some women and he had what they, based on their interaction with each other, they felt offended, or they felt now it's a civil matter. Let's find out how that resolves itself. We know that in some cases takes a long time, but it also involves people gossiping about what's going on with your life. So he's still going to be in the public eye for some time, but criminally, he was found not guilty. And in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. So Deshaun Watson is innocent.
Innocent. Once Cleveland start winning, they'll forget all about it.
Facts.
Give them a couple wins, and it's like Deshaun did what now?
Facts.
Right, exactly. And that's just it. Getting back to playing football, that's what's ultimately going. So with that being said, that's going to be, of course, a safe haven for him. But more importantly, what are the predictions now? So now you again, your previous receiving core is now completely changed. No longer, not only is Odell gone, but so is Jarvis, and now you insert Amari Cooper. I think he'll be a whole lot happier compared, with what we were saying prior to about, versus Dak Prescott, in my opinion, at least. Now, there might certainly be some rust given that it's been a year, but what do you guys think, Bro Rich? What are you thinking on his new weapon?
I think he's going to have some more in the offing. I think they're going to go hunting for some good wide receivers in the draft, perhaps. I think that they're going to go looking to make some more moves, because here's what we were facing as well. And I said this, if you check the tape on this program, we talked about this when the Browns signed Odell Beckham, that he was not going to be able to stay in Cleveland long, not coming from the big ocean that he was playing in New York to go to a literal river, in his view, only his point of view, in terms of the kind of exposure he was getting in the New York media as opposed to what he encountered in playing in Cleveland. The Browns only have a small window with any player they bring in. Understand this. The Browns right now are on the clock with Myles Garrett. You heard it here first. They're on the clock with Myles Garrett. If they don't win very soon, Myles Garrett has every incentive to leave Cleveland and go play in a better climate, in a warmer climate, for more money, because every team in the league will empty their bank account, so to speak, proverbially speaking, what they are willing to give somebody at his position. They will give him the money that he would want and deserve at that time. All he has to do is stay healthy. Are you going to re-sign in Cleveland for a long-term deal, or are you going to take the money and run to Dallas or LA or Atlanta or maybe Miami or Tampa Bay or something like that?
In terms of money, does Cleveland even have the money to sign a Myles Garrett and then maybe Amari Cooper if he wants to stay, and then Deshaun? Do they have the money to sign
him? The Super Bowl. They do.
Well, to actually, Doc, to that point, Amari Cooper's actually already restructured his contract. He just got there, and he's already restructured the contract for Deshaun.
Okay,
So
see, I didn't know that. Okay.
And then on top of that, we all know Baker's last year, of course, is an $18 million deal, which is a hefty sum on the
Mhm.
cap. There's two big factors at play here when it comes to this upcoming season. If Watson does have any type of suspension at all, his salary for this season goes to $1 million. It's a contract stipulation, so it's only $1 million cap hit. With that being said, of course, that allows you to sustain Baker's 18 million, because from what we're being told right now, the Browns actually have no interest in trading him for obvious reasons that, simply put, you're not going to get anything maybe other than the 6th round pick, if that, just because of the circumstances surrounding the nature of the trade. So knowing that that's what's going on, I mean, that's a lot of dollars in circulation. As far as Myles Garrett goes, I'm completely in agreement with you guys that it's going to be performance based, not from what he can do on the field. We know what he can do. It's what the rest of the team does. I would say if he was any kind of voice of reason to upper management about this very set of circumstances, I think his prayers have been answered, and they certainly are going going for it. And that's really it. As far as who else is out there, is there anyone that comes to mind that, whether it's now that the draft picks are pretty much gone, where do you go from here? What other things need to be added to this team? You've seen some losses on the O line. You've seen, I believe, obviously we talked about the receiving situation, but what else does this team need, in your opinion, to really make a run? Because it may be a
I
1 or
think
2
you
year
got to
window.
sign some veteran free agents. You got to do just like the Rams did and the Tampa Bay did the year
We got to get
before.
some
You
veteran
got
receivers.
to go out and get some veterans. Some at these different skill positions, you got to go get some veterans that want to play for a contender and are willing to come to Cleveland for a year and try to win a Super Bowl. You got to go after that kind of talent.
We need at least one more receiver to help out Amari Cooper, because it can't just be Amari Cooper and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. That can be the only offense. That can't be the only flow. We got to have another receiver on the other side of the field. Really get that offense flowing. So as far as offense goes, we only need one more receiver. I think we pretty much got the pieces they need on offense, maybe another lineman or two, but other than that, that's it far as offense goes. I would focus most of my time on like defense. Like, do we have good cornerbacks? How's our safeties looking? I know we got looking pretty good when it comes to the linebacker standpoint, but I would focus on like my corners, my safeties, and like maybe a 1 or 2 D tackles, but my defense will be my main focus this year upcoming. Outside of, like I said, those couple receivers on offense.
Yeah, and obviously they have some. We seen with the draft last year, they tried. They put a good group around Baker, and obviously it didn't, of course, to get the results we were looking for. I want to see what those other guys can do in camp with him, with that being with Deshaun. That that's just it. When you have someone of that caliber, how everyone else around you gets better. And it's almost scary for a team that it was averaging, 7 yards a carry. What happens with a mobile quarterback that, oh, by the way, can thread the needle? This is something that
you get the Baltimore effect. That's what I like to call it. You get the Baltimore.
I was going to say, because remember now, this is a team with a very serious running game. They have a very serious running game. So you give them a quarterback of his skill set. And I think this is why everyone laid the blame, unfortunately, again, because personally, I like his swag, as they call it, Baker Mayfield. And I want him to be successful as the next destination. But unfortunately, he just had his opportunity. He wasn't able to, as my teacher once used the example of, he wasn't able to ride that horse. That horse bucked him. Because he had everything and you cannot. What he should have done wisely was declared himself hurt and sat out. And then we could have said something about him, but at least he would have been, rather than try to tough it out and not perform at his elite best, but to just kind of go along to keep it going. But that wasn't enough with that kind of talent around. And ultimately, the blame is laid at his feet. but we know that's how football is. And so Deshaun is the quarterback now, and we ride with that in terms of dog pound land.
Absolutely. I do want to say what up to Ricardo Stafford, of
What's up, Mr.
course.
Stafford, how are you, sir?
What's going on?
And then, oh my goodness, what do we have here?
Okay, here we go.
We look good without him. And has he been replaced?
No, we could never replace you.
We need our Cowboy fan here.
That'd be like trying to replace Jerry Jones or the Dallas Cowboys themselves. We can't replace you.
Exactly. So definitely want to make sure our host with the most, that being Barbershop Jay, is in good spirits. Hope Moms is doing well, of course.
Yes, indeed. Prayers up.
And of course, you know, on our end, of course, we want to make sure that we're ready for Deshaun Watson to show you, as Bro Rich has so eloquently put it, to remind you this is not your Grandpappy's Browns.
Not.
And so I'm looking forward to a rocking First Energy Stadium next year. I have my NFT already, so my jersey will be here shortly. But go ahead, Doc.
I was saying, I feel like the Cleveland Browns get Deshaun Watson a long time ago. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. leaves.
Not at all.
No, we get Deshaun, Odell stays.
Well, wait a minute. Go now. Here's the thing, though. Isn't he a free agent? He only signed a deal. Now he got hurt right in the Super Bowl, but is Cleveland going to welcome him back with open arms? Are we going to hold his?
No way he goes back.
Probably not.
Come on now. No way. He's begging the Rams to re-sign it. Come on now. No way.
Of course, they splurged. Who was it that they just spent some money on at the receiver position? Allen Robinson from the Jags. So.
Oh yeah, forgot about him.
But I just saw on Twitter, I think it was last night or yesterday or this morning. They you know, they're about to they just I know they signed somebody, but I know they also traded somebody. I saw on Twitter last night or this morning.
Who's that?
The Rams did. They traded somebody.
Let's find out here on the fly.
And so rumor is that they're trying to make room to re-sign Odell.
Oh, they traded Robert Woods.
Yeah, I knew they traded someone. Yeah.
Yeah. Titans get an A for the discount wide receiver, and again, like you just nailed it, bro. Rich, it was a cap move.
Robert Woods couldn't stay healthy, so I mean, why keep him anyway?
No, and that's just it. I mean, talented guy. Obviously, watched him, I believe, at USC. Kid can make plays, but unfortunately, the name of the game is staying on the field, and we know how challenging that can be. And so, on a good note, though, with now Julio Jones is out there. That's bro, Rich. You said veteran,
and that's exactly the kind of play I'm talking about.
Oh, they also signed Brandon Powell too.
Julio Jones is exactly the kind of play I'm talking about that will look at that situation in Cleveland and say, you know what, I'm gonna go play.
I'm going to Cleveland,
win a ring. That's it. He's just gonna go there and eat. He's gonna live in a hotel for a year and win a ring, and call it, and call it an opportunity to either move on to another team for, as he winds down his career. Or that's the kind of player you're talking about. Yes.
If Cleveland goes after Deshaun, they are going to be dangerous. I mean, not Deshaun, but after Julio Jones, they're going to be dangerous next year.
Well, Brissett is a better backup than Case. Barbershop, they have. What do you mean? The backup right now is Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, Baker ain't went nowhere yet.
And so, that's $18 million on the books. They are not bringing anybody in until that cap space is cleared at that position. So if Case is still under contract, then that's who's going to be third string going into camp. I'm intrigued. Of course, that locker room dynamic matters. Chemistry matters. We talk about that often. This is where, bro, Rich, your point, veteran presence. I don't think I'm getting in an argument with Myles Garrett. So, anything he says is law. So, but, again, you would hope there's no hard feelings, especially if you never know what'll happen, right? Obviously Tom Brady's career, really speaks to that, just being in the right place at the right time. I would never in my wildest nightmares or dreams hope for something bad to happen to Watson. But if it did and Baker Mayfield had to get rolled out there, we know he's capable, right. So if it came down to it,
and he could win a big game, he can make a moment. We know he can do that. He just couldn't carry it the whole season.
That's right. So again, none of us have any ill will towards him. And again, I supported him because again, kind of that, more of that Colin Cowherd opposite effect where, I wanted the backward hat thing to work. I wanted it to, to ultimately transpire and be able to allow him to be a young trendsetter. But, of course, things worked out differently. But with that being said,
last time I'm going to say, one more point on that. Atlanta would have been perhaps the worst city for Deshaun Watson to go play football.
Oh man, I'm glad he did.
Considering the things that are alleged and surrounding his name, that would have been absolutely the worst location in America to go play football.
So Julio Jones's top 3 landing spots, according to ESPN, is the Las Vegas Raiders, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Washington Commanders. Out of those 3, I say he go to Las Vegas with Davante Adams.
Going to Vegas.
Yeah, go to Vegas with Adams. Like, if you don't want to come to Cleveland, go to Vegas.
But again, remember, Cleveland has to woo him and win him. And I'm saying to you that don't be surprised that they're not finished making moves and they go after. Remember now, as Double J said, reminded us, Deshaun turned us down initially, but then had to really think about it. I would bet that somebody in his inner circle told him that would be a terrible move to go to Atlanta. Terrible. He gets seen talking to one woman out there. He's in serious trouble.
Mm-hmm.
More so for Watson, of course, but as far as Julio Jones, again, you're this late in your career. You made it to the Super Bowl. You listen to those landing spots, none of them scream to me that winning, cashing out might be one thing.
They don't look like championship contending teams, no.
And this is why, to Bro Rich's point about being sold on Cleveland, I believe this is the difference. This is almost like the LeBron effect in many respects. You now have a bona fide star at the quarterback position. That certainly, until earlier this week, that couldn't have been said for nearly 30, 40 years. Does that change the narrative now when it comes to getting, being a free agent destination? Especially if someone, I don't know how much is left in the tank. He had a rough year in Tennessee, but, we know statistically throughout all those years in Atlanta, what, that type of receiver, that Julio Jones can be. But, is he willing to play in the cold? Again, this is an Alabama kid that I've watched, since he was in high school. And it was just coincidentally, for those, we're going to age me here. Doc, you may remember this. There was a Friday Night Lights show on MTV of all places about, I think it was called the Hoover football team in Alabama. And they coincidentally went against and lost to a guy named Julio Jones, who they said was the best player in the state.
Hoover was one of the greatest teams I've ever seen play the game of football.
And so coincidentally, I followed the kid. Of course, he went to Alabama, and the rest is history. We all knew, if you didn't know his name by then, you certainly knew going into that NFL draft and a national title later. So certainly after, Nick Saban made sure that the world knew who he was. And so with that being said, we're going to take a 30-second break here, and we'll be right back.
SK Cunningham, you watching the Shop Report.
Touch that dial. Stay tuned.
Hey, I'm Billy Butler, and thank you for watching the Shop Report. Hey guys, I'm Les Norman, former Kansas City Royal, and you're watching the Shop Report. Commander Brown, Detroit Rivers Mountain Training, and I'm watching the Shop Report.
Barbershop Jay, Quentin Hines, Super Bowl champion. I'm ready. Let's do it. I'm on.
All right. Just like that, we are back and better than ever. And so, as a reminder, of course, I am filling in for our host who is, stuck on I-75.
He's on the yacht with Jerry and the crew. They're discussing the Cowboys' upcoming season and who they're going to draft.
That's right. They, after they whiffed on so many free agency moves, they had to, they were like, look, this long distance thing isn't working anymore,
Right.
Barbershop. We need you
They need
in
somebody
here
to help you
now.
block Kirk Cousins.
And so moving right along into topic number 2 here, it is, of course, it's spring. So that means it is March Madness.
Right.
And of course, with that being said, nearly the first weekend's games, of course, mine is still playing. And that's why if you see me ducking down, looking left, right, up, down, inverted, that is because the Purdue Boilermakers are playing, and I've lost all fingernails to chew. So with that being said, there's been a number of, that's why they call it March Madness. There's been a lot of things that took place. What's sticking out to you guys as we're starting to trend towards the Sweet 16 and beyond?
These top seeds dropping like flies, man.
Right.
Like it's like, did y'all forget how to play basketball once the tournament started? Like I don't get it. Like a lot of people's brackets were busted this weekend.
Oh, well, mine was done actually after the first game. That it went from perfect to imperfect. That's all it took was one game.
Yeah, that's all. That's usually all it takes. That one game. That's it. I didn't see Baylor losing though. I didn't see that. I thought Baylor would pull out that dub.
Interestingly enough, I don't know if you see that comment there.
I see it.
Now, our host is touching on it right there. Certainly the big you have to give it up for St. Peter's. Nobody knew where they were. Turns out from the original Real World, Heather B, also an artist of, at one point in time as well. She attended there. That's how I knew where they were located, which is Jersey City. So they made it further than the Rutgers and hopefully not further than my Boilermakers. I prefer that we're meeting them next week. So knocking out Kentucky again, Dick Vitale had them as his national champion. So, when the analysts, no one saw that coming at all. And then, of course, as our host is pointing out here, we got to give it up to Providence. They felt very, very disrespected that they were being picked as an upset. From what I actually learned, I learned this I was in a part of a virtual tailgate with Purdue last week. Purdue scrimmaged Providence in November and lost. And so once that happened, that changed my whole stance on them specifically. I knew that they had a veteran group, and I'd watched what they did in the A10, or I'm sorry, the Big East, and they had my respect because I believe they had beaten Villanova. So a lot of great things going on with this group from my perspective. But Doc, go ahead. What are you thinking on your end?
You were fading in now. What'd you say now?
I was going to say, what's your big takeaway from this first weekend?
Just because the seed is higher doesn't mean it's a guaranteed win. Honestly, that's the biggest take I got from it. Because, like I said, there's a lot of top seed teams going down, and I picked quite a few of these top teams to pull through. But I didn't see Murray State losing to St. Peter's. I didn't see any of that. I honestly thought that Gonzaga was going to mess around and lose to Memphis, but they held on at the last minute. But I just didn't expect to see this many top seeds to go down this soon. I was thinking maybe second round, third round when a majority of the upsets would happen, but a lot of upsets happened within the first round of games here.
So something I want to point out is, and I want your guys' take on this. A friend of the show, Dave Fleming from ESPN, had put out a post saying they want you to focus on Cinderella and not their terrible seeding.
I agree with that. And here's what I think we're looking at also, Double J and Doc and the listeners. We said on this program when we were discussing one and done and whether or not the NCAA was hurting itself by not just letting the players who were capable jump to the NBA and this idea of keeping them in college. And so here's what we're looking at now in the NCAA championships. We're looking at parity in the sense that understand the one and dones, they're going to Kentucky, but those are not teams. There's a tweet out, somebody put out on Twitter, I saw one of the former players, Kenny Anderson, I believe, or one of them, they're condemning Kentucky basketball for what it has become because everyone knows it's just a grooming finishing school where you go there for a couple of weeks before you jump to the NBA. And it's all the number one picks from all across the country that go there to get their professional grooming, and that's where they meet their agents and they understand who they're trying to go play for and what they're going to do. So it's the mid-majors time during this time of year. These are real teams. These are teams because these young men have been on campus 2-3 years. They weren't expecting to go right to the pros. So the NC2A, in their nonsense of seeding these bigger schools, the Dukes, why is Coach K getting out of basketball? Could it be because he's now entered the era where the one and dones have ruined the quote unquote college game? Because you at his level, a player that is able to go to Duke is not going to go to Duke and worry about his books and commit to going to class when I can just go to Kentucky or go to one of these other schools that are just going to let me go and really just hang out on in the lounge. But I can still, I don't even have to learn the game of basketball. Coach K wants you to learn the game of basketball, learn to wear a suit, learn to manage your money, be responsible. He wants to hold you responsible. These young players don't even want to do that. That's the reality. And so I think the NC2A tournament is absolutely an opportunity to watch parity where real teams compete. And that's what continues to make it interesting, even in the era of these one and done.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that point there because something I heard Tom
harass me from Dallas.
Oh yeah, he sure does. He's got some. What has he got? Some gators on down there.
You already know that.
And so, but I'd heard Tom Izzo recently say we've taken enough from these kids. And what he meant is, he was actually not entirely against the NIL stuff, but instead what he was emphasizing is the ability to teach them both discipline and, life fundamentals that typically now as we've talked about the role of coaching in at all levels, but that essentially, Bro Rich, to your point, they're losing all of that.
Right.
It's there just to be a factory.
Right.
Again, somebody like Coach Calipari is certainly, again, unfortunately, whether right or wrong, he certainly becomes kind of the poster child of that.
But you got to respect him for it because he's honest about that. Calipari is very honest that that's what he's doing because he knows that absent that, these young men have made terrible decisions. Many of them have lost their money and not handled themselves. He is at least honest with them. Look, you got the talent to go to the pros. You're not going to be serious about college. And he finishes them and grooms them, if you will, towards that. And that's why they all universally love him and respect him. So I respect that part of the game too. It's the hypocrisy of the NC2A that messes this up. If they would integrate those kinds of things as part of their overall system and then encourage these young men by paying them a reasonable, respectful salary, something commensurate that would cause them to want to stay at the college level, keep their eligibility, get an education, be able to really manage their money. It would help the NBA go back to the time where the seasoned players lasted longer and the game got better and more physical and more competitive, if you will, as opposed to what we have is these kids, they're just jumping to the league to just get money and the passion for the game is not there anymore because once they get to the NBA, they've made it. So we have a player from Philadelphia, I won't say his name because it'll enlighten our host, even in Dallas. So I won't say his name, but we have a player that was in Philadelphia who we know this young man came and made it to the league and just apparently stop working on the game of basketball because he was now a celebrity, now dating celebrities, and it's all about that now as opposed to working on my game.
Well, and so to bring that point up about, both the seeding, Cinderella, one and dones, and then you look at the COVID rule, which is granting a free year of eligibility. And so what it's done, something that I would, I personally had picked Iowa State to win that game. So as an 11 seed to make it to the Sweet 16. Why? Because I knew that players like Isaiah Brockington, who was previously at Penn State, was a beast. And that they'd also taken Gabe Kalsher, who had came from Minnesota, again, very capable player, amongst, whoever else was there. And so what you're seeing guys that are essentially balding. They're past 25, in some cases 26 years old. You look at even Brad Davison or Jordan Bohannon. You almost feel like they've been in college long enough to get a doctorate. And so are we in favor or against that when it comes to just the loss of experience, and certainly this interesting basketball, I think even more so than football, even though you could look at someone like a Walker from Michigan State, who was a transfer and almost became a Heisman candidate.
He should have been a Heisman candidate.
Well, see, I knew I'd kick the hornet's nest with that, but certainly, are we in favor of a transfer portal like this, or are we against it?
Well, the NC2A is such a mess right now that here's the unfortunate thing. If we go back to the way it was, you are literally condemning these young men and women to situations where the coach is all powerful over them, almost in a servant master kind of way, like we were reminiscing about in the past, where now the coach really is able to direct your future career because he or she can keep you from playing, can bench you because they don't like you. And we know that there have been many, many personal situations with players why many of them didn't make it to the league because this coach had the opportunity to put you in the game, pull you, do these kind of things that ultimately impacted these young men's lives and the lives of their families because basketball or football or whatever it was sometimes all they had. So I don't know if we can condemn the transfer portal just yet. We got to watch it and maybe make some twerks to it. But the idea of them being able to go where they want to go and take their talents to South Beach, let's do it. Or Dallas in Barbershop's case.
I'm all for it. Like you said, it gives the player the opportunity to have at least one hand on the steering wheel before we just in the back seat, just riding along. We don't have to do that no more. So if you want to play me, I'm gonna be like Joe Burrow and I'm gonna go ahead and bounce and go somewhere else. And now I'm national check.
That's a perfect example.
I'm gonna go somewhere that's gonna let me shine. Like y'all don't want to play me, okay? I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you. And look, I'm in favor of it.
The concern, the personal concern I have is it's almost again I'm very conflicted on it, which is it becomes a bidding war. And again, for the player, that's wonderful, right? At the end of the day, my goodness, you couldn't be in a better position than that. There's some kids that because we understand that 2% make it from that level to the next level, that payday, I've always been for that, at least on the surface level, to be paid for the work that you're personally putting in, even if, my goodness, it's just from the purchase of a jersey that your grandmother did, almost out of charity, right? Because she's your number one fan, and so that's why you hear T-Pain say, "Now my grandma is not the only one calling me baby," until you're making those types of numbers. So, but what I fear is that for certain universities and in the overwhelming majority, they can't afford it. And so what you're going to have is almost like what you see in European soccer, that there's a handful of clubs that can afford to get the world's elite players. And then there's everybody else. And so if you become everybody else, that's why they ultimately installed the recent rules when it came to just almost without putting a salary cap on it, just equal playing or in paying that you couldn't outrageously do that to try to give some of these other teams a chance. But I see us in the NCAA going a very similar direction. And so again, it's a payday for the kids. I'm not against that part of it. But what I do fear is that with the college football playoff, it's still 4 teams for like the foreseeable future. So there's almost going to be no opportunities for people to crash that party, because I've always said that was nearly determined. That's pretty much determined in August, not so much December or late November. And so, but what are your guys' thoughts on it, kind of hearing that different perspective?
Double J, I think that you have a very valid point. But here's the thing that happens. And I know, let's take your alma mater, for instance, right? You're never going to be able to sell Purdue except as what Purdue is, a highly rated institution of learning that has all of the major sports programs, right? That's in a major part of the country, in the heart of the country. That's what it is. And so who comes from the nearby, the neighborhoods, who comes from the state, who comes from, you recruit those people and you try to hold on to your homegrown talent as best you can. Now, that team is never going to be able to compete with, let's say, I'll just throw USC out because USC is selling a whole different package. They're not really recruit. Their whole dynamics is different. Now, the problem becomes in football, like you're talking about, for instance, everybody's always looking for Georgia, Clemson. Why? Because they're selling the same LSUs. We're gonna get you to the NFL. We're getting you ready for the NFL. And the unfortunate thing, in my opinion, is that they get to hold their commodity for 3 years minimum. Those players have to stay at minimum 3 years, but it's based on not are they going to get a good education. We don't read scholars coming out of these programs. What we read about is the best wide receiver and the best running back, and so they're able and in Georgia has become, Florida has become homes of the almost like breeding grounds, if you will, Louisiana, of these high school football programs where they just continue to turn over this kind of talent year in and year out. So we have to ask the question. It's the same in basketball. We have to ask the question: what happens in a place like Cleveland, for instance, or Purdue, or what happens in those mid-majors, the mid-market teams? What happens to them if those teams are able to say, if I get to Purdue and I'm the backup quarterback, but I'm like Joe Burrow and I'm good, but all I have is Purdue. And if Purdue does not let me play, I just come from a small town in Indiana. If I don't get to play here, nobody else really knows me. So what do? I just sit on the bench because the coach likes the starter better than me, and then he recruits somebody else the next year. And we have this story in college football where they move the guy further and further down the bench because they didn't recruit him as the number one player. In that scenario, what happens to something like that?
Now you have players just wasting their talent instead of going to different schools.
Remember, this guy was probably the best quarterback in his county or his neighborhood, but he's in Indiana and nobody really knows him like they know the kid who was a great quarterback down in Florida, because everybody scouts them, or they know the kid in Louisiana, everybody scouts them, or they know the kid in Texas because it's a factory as well. So they know these young men and they get to play, but a guy coming up in Michigan or coming up in this, that is Michigan, you can't even use Michigan because they're on television every week. They got major packages. So you can't, that's like a pro football program. You play for them, whether you second, third, fourth string, somebody's going to notice you and know what's happening with you because somebody has an eye on you. So, but in the mid-major programs, I see that as that transfer portal helping them more than the big team.
Doc, where are you at?
I'm with Brother Rich on that. Like, you go somewhere because where they're going to get you. You don't go to, a Purdue to get to the NFL or the NBA, but
Right.
it's never been presented like that. It's never been presented. Hey, you come here, we gonna get you to that next level. No, this is never. You're gonna go to the school or transfer to the school that has the best option of getting you to that next level, because nobody's playing football just to play for free. No, they in college playing to get to that higher level. And I'm gonna go to whatever school I can that's best fit and suited to get me there. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement from that perspective. I couldn't agree more that what I do like is getting these kids second chances or another opportunity, because again, what we've seen from the coaches is them taking full advantage of those opportunities.
Right.
And so the kids getting, even if it's $1 million, great. Obviously that's still a third of or less than of what their head coach is getting. The tuition is still paid for, and this is a part that I think I've never quite understood how the general public almost is unaware that these scholarships are paid for by alumni. They're paid, like me personally, I have put money in towards, that's why I said I'm a part of the John Purdue Club. That means I have bought my way in to that club on an annual basis, and now I'm not the top donor. I'm not Drew Brees. But at the same time, that goes directly to those kids' books and everything that they need. And personally, again, we're in a results-driven world. And so, yes, you're going to have those academic institutions that only care solely about academics, but you also have, look at what I'm talking about right now. And Bro Rich, what we talked about before the show, I said, hey, look, this is, there was a Pat Forty put out an article about Purdue and basketball and how they've been as consistent as anybody, that, your traditional blue bloods for 20 plus years and don't have a national title banner. And so yet here we are. And I'm talking about it right now, that we're wanting results. The pulse of the fan base is asking for results, which means, again, we're not talking about the academics of the kids. We're talking about what you can do on a field.
But that's gonna be hard to do at that level, Double J. That's what we're saying. The ceiling is there because you would have to get a naturally talented, homegrown talent that would be the equivalent of John Moran. You got, because remember now, we're talking about the reason why Kentucky exists, Duke exists, because they're able to get North Carolina, the absolute best basketball players in high school from all around the country. Everybody wants to go there. And they're recruiting from the cream of the crop. So that leaves for Purdue, you got to recruit homegrown, and then you got to try to get an outsider guy, somebody who nobody else really knows about, or maybe doesn't believe in as much as your staff would believe in that kid, and he has to turn out to be John Morant. Where at NC2A time, here's the problem with why I've never been convinced in the Gonzagas and the Purdues and the mid majors at tournament time, is because ultimately you got to have a guy who can hit that shot like Jordan did, or we can run the numbers down. You got to have a guy like Carmelo Anthony, who in the championship can take the ball and say, look, at the end of the day, this is basketball, and I do this better than anybody else out here. And this is a one-on-one thing, and nobody out here can stop me. And so more than likely, when the Syracuse, who's recruiting from New York and Maryland and that whole East Coast basketball corridor, when they are playing a team like Purdue doesn't have that guy. Indiana may have that guy, but he may not be. He may be under a different kind of restraint. But you know that North Carolina has that kid. We can just run the Duke has somebody like that. They have that. It's harder for somebody like Purdue to get that person unless he's just a naturally homegrown kid who just did something different. His parents were NBA players and played in the WNBA, and he got them kind of genes.
Right. They looking at where those players went to school at, and they're like, ooh, I think I might want to go there too, because if they went there and they made it, I can go there and I can make it.
Right. And it's interesting you say that, because Bro Rich, you pretty much just summarized Jaden Ivey, which is essentially produced outsider star.
Right.
That homegrown kid, obviously from the state of Indiana, played at La Lumiere. His mom, of course, played at in Indianapolis with the Indiana Fever, coaches at Notre Dame.
That's your hope, right?
That's
there.
it.
That's the guy right there. That's what you need. You need that guy right there who then he can take you to the next level. Why are we all paying attention to the Memphis Grizzlies? Everybody knows what's happening with them at some point in time. John Morant he's must see highlight. He's on every Twitter thing. Every night he plays, I know because he's all over Twitter. He's always doing something fantastic, something amazing. So this is what we're talking about. Lifting a mid-major, that's a mid-major team. He's lifted them into the national conversation, the national spotlight. And the minute he leaves that team, we know what's going to happen with it.
It's going to be a Memphis who?
It's going to be the Memphis some team.
Yeah, and again, we've brought it up time and time again about the small markets. Matter of fact, even before the Deshaun Watson thing flipped right on top of its head, there was that element that you brought up, Bro Rich, that it just had Cleveland having to be sold to people is beyond just overpaying, is almost a competitive disadvantage. And is it time for these leagues to get involved in some way, because you have put a salary cap and you're taking, if you're going to do that you're ultimately trying to state that everything is equal. And what we understand as a society and as a human being is that, simply put, Detroit is not LA. And so there's that, to me,
I know you guys have seen the Matt Stafford commercial that's out with him.
Oh, of course. Doc
terrible.
wept when he seen it.
That was terrible.
I know he's loving it out there.
That was terrible.
I told Doc, go ahead. This is your time to shine. That is your guy.
I'm hurt, man. I'm happy he doing his thing out there, but I miss my Stafford, dog. That's still my quarterback, bro.
Yeah, okay.
I wish the Lions had went all in and gave him the things he needed so he could stay right here, dog. He's supposed to win that Super Bowl for us, man. That was supposed to be my Super Bowl. Now I gotta wait another 10 years of trash before we can get rid of it.
Look, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but I ever since we've been on this program, Double J will attest to the fact that I've told them on and off air. There's certain cities in the country that are going to have a hard time as it relates to keeping professional athletes. That's just facts. Detroit, Cleveland, and New Orleans, those cities are going to have a hard time.
I mean, Cleveland turning it around now.
These boys are on first contracts. They're showing and proving what they can do. The minute that they are up for renewal, probably one of them is going to stay. The one who gets the most money. The rest of them are out of there. Mark my word. You heard it here first. Okay. Those guys were drafted. Cleveland can draft players, and they'll be good and they'll show what they can do. And in the minute they get an opportunity, Kyrie, LeBron, they're out of there. Yeah. And remember, LeBron is from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same in Detroit. As soon as they get that opportunity, they leave. Look at Chris Middleton.
You can't. Can you
Luke
blame
Kennard.
them? Here you're asking 18, 19, 20-year-old young men with all the money in the world that could go at that point in their life after their first 3 or 4 years in a city, can then decide they can go any city that has an NBA team and play for that team. And many of them have opportunities to go to locations like Los Angeles, Phoenix, Atlanta, Charlotte, Miami, San Francisco, Las Vegas. How do you choose Detroit over Las Vegas? Detroit over San Francisco?
I mean, look at Cade Cunningham. He said he wanted to come to Detroit. Look at Cade.
Of course. Yeah, he's there now. Let's see how long he stays. That's the question.
I hope he stays for another couple of years. He's a great player. We just got to build around him. If you build around him,
that's what I'm talking about. If he doesn't win, the player wants to leave.
Yeah, that's a waste of you wasting your talent. I get it. I get it. I just wish.
Remember, people went to New England. It's colder in New England. And
But they're going there because they know they're gonna win with Tom
that's
Brady.
exactly right. They went there to win 7 rings. They
Yeah.
didn't care about how cold it was, and not they went there because they had an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. People will come to Cleveland. The players will come if the team was winning, and we believe that with this young, wonderful quarterback, that tide has turned, and they're about to start winning.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like they're gonna start winning, but I just wish they didn't because I don't like seeing Ohio teams beat on my Lions like that. You know?
Okay, well, get
Oh
ready.
man.
Get ready.
Yeah, I know I'll be hurt. I'm gonna have my tissues with me.
They're gonna
That's
beat them
it.
like Tony Montana was chopping up that cocaine on the table. beating
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Celebrating
Long as
Miami Hurricanes.
we got the
Celebrating the Miami
notebook,
Hurricanes win. You know, he's a Hurricane fan.
long as we got the notebook, aka Ryan Gosling at quarterback, we ain't going nowhere.
Oh no.
He was
No.
not the answer. We was not the answer. I mean, at least we got Amon Ra, St. Brown.
He'll be
Happy
out
about
there.
that.
How many years he's there for?
I give him next year and that's it.
Okay. Remember what is the receiver y'all had that he retired early?
Megatron.
Yeah.
Megatron. Remember he said what he said. He was giving up his body, and he felt it was for the franchise.
It was for
not
nothing.
willing to do. Yeah, it was for nothing.
Barry
Exactly.
Sanders said the same thing. He just didn't say it too much later on after he retired, but it's the same thing. They didn't want to go play nowhere else. They love Detroit, and they're like, I'm not going to keep sacrificing my body. But just
No,
think, if they had said,
and lose.
I'm going to go somewhere else and win, Emmitt Smith would have never broken Barry Sanders' record. I believe if Barry Sanders didn't retire after year 9, his records would still be untouched till this day. Like, give him a line like Emmitt Smith had in Dallas. I hate to say it, but that was one of the greatest lines of that time.
Fact.
Get that line, get that same line of Barry Sanders.
I know you all are hearing the rumor that the young man in Utah has his eyes on Donovan Mitchell has his eyes on the Knicks, right? Same kind of circumstance, Utah. You don't want to you're not going to just labor in Utah and play basketball in Utah.
You ain't winning nothing.
And you're not winning. You want out of there.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, how many years he's been there for? What?
He's been there since he got drafted. Yeah.
Well, right, and obviously Pistons fans, old regime, but they grabbed I think Luke Kennard 2 picks before him.
Luke Kennard playing better now than he was.
Well, but still not at that level.
No,
even for a single season. Maybe for a moment. But
he didn't do that here in Detroit. I would have picked Donovan Mitchell over Luke Kennard any day.
Oh, of course. And so
but, I mean, the Pistons are not known for making good picks either. They passed up on Carmelo, like they passed up on Dwayne Wade. Like we just cannot pick.
Obvious picks.
Yeah.
I
no
personally,
Chris Bosh, like obvious picks that you should like. Hey, let me get him a try. Nope.
Unbelievable.
They go get these no-name Rudy Poops, and it's like, oh, they might be okay.
Well, and that kind of leads into where I was going with this is that these prospects, of course, are going to be in this year's upcoming draft. The Pistons right now, it looks like Orlando, Detroit, and not New Orleans, Sacramento and Indiana are your bottom 4. Taking a look at it, I've seen something a couple days ago, and this is something that you and I have debated already countless, a handful of times. It was once again projecting Chet Holmgren.
My boy Chet.
No, I don't get it. Look, so I watched that game. I've watched both games. Being selected first overall by the Pistons, and to me, this is as big of a mistake as Darko Milicic, and I'm going to say why. The people behind him, Jaden Ivey playing with Cade Cunningham, is. I mean, as you hear, there was like a mind explosion as to what that actually could look like, because again, they've solved their problem. They're a much more competitive team. Obviously, they played Cleveland over the weekend. They lose by 4. So you're talking about again playoff teams. They went to, of course, they played Orlando. They beat them. Sadiq Bey goes out for over
51 points
by himself.
Random 50 points I've ever seen.
Well, Cade was out that game. They play against a Heat team that we've been kind of wishy-washy with, but to my knowledge, they're still the first in the East, and they barely lose to them. So this team, again, after sitting in a webinar with Troy Weaver 2 years ago, He says we need to crawl before we walk and then walk before we run. This team is jogging. If you get someone that has, as Bro Rich described, John Morant potential with Cade he proved me wrong. And now, of course, I love him, right? And obviously, friend of the show has done an enormous, he's done plenty of things for us.
Big up for Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, buddy.
I cannot, Doc, you're going to have to explain to me why.
I just like the way Chet balls. It's no reason. I just like the way Chet balls, dog. Like he's almost like a Kevin Durant with a little bit smaller though. Like I like Chet. He can shoot, he can dribble. He has a good eye. I just like Chet. I can't really explain it. I just like watching Chet play basketball, and I would like to see that here in Detroit. Yes, he has to gain a little bit more weight because he's going to get bullied down low. Like really going to get bullied down low.
Jalen Duren did that to him in that game yesterday evening.
He's not a perfect fit.
But that's just it. He's not a perfect fit, in my opinion, anywhere because he's capable of playing the 3, the 4, and the 5, which sounds like a wonderful thing. It's a good problem. But to me, if I'm a general manager, well, where am I going to put you? Because not only do I have to not just put you there, you have to perform there. And if you try to put him at the 5, as you just alluded to, and as we saw on full display, because Jalen Duren's a first-round pick.
He's going to get bullied if you put him at the 5. Chet, I'd keep him at the 3 and the 4.
But is he quick enough to play the 3?
I don't know. He looks like it in college, but you can never tell with these college players until they make it to the NBA. So I don't know. I can't answer that one for you. I feel like he could, but then when you look at a realistic standpoint, you look at other 3 guards and 4 guards. I don't know if he can keep up on the perimeter. I would like to see him keep up on the perimeter because I like him as a player, but at that next level of basketball, I don't know. That's gonna be real iffy.
Bro, Rich, this kid has the range. He can stretch. He can stretch.
He can stretch a floor for sure.
He's 7 foot, but he
can shoot almost like Kevin Durant. Like I'm telling you, he's a smaller Kevin Durant from the way he handles the rock and the way he plays on the perimeter. That's
and Kevin Durant was never known for his size, his bulk, so to speak.
No, but Chet is smaller than Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant is
that's what's concerning.
150 pounds wet.
So is this kid the number one? He's the projected number 1.
It's between him and 2 others.
And Ivy.
Yeah, him and Ivy. Yeah, it really I believe again, depending on how this, the rest of this tournament shakes out, will really be some of the difference makers here because we know Gonzaga's moving on to the Sweet 16. Purdue is going into halftime right now, up 6. So for those inquiring minds,
Gonzaga moving on.
And so you have really speaking of, as Bro Rich pointed out, right? You have the kid from Duke, you have Paolo Banchero, you have Chet Holmgren at Gonzaga, and then, believe it or not, Purdue has crashed the party with Jaden Ivey. Now, he's been kind of neglected. This is where having a good team around you actually hurts him because his statistics aren't like Johnny Davis at Wisconsin, who was just eliminated a little earlier today, where the team solely relies on you and you have to play basically every second of every game. Yeah. Same can be said with the other 2. They're on the floor constantly. I would argue Chet actually kind of falls into this too, but he's in this tournament specifically. He's been getting into foul trouble, and again, I seen it when they were going against a 16 seed, and as Bro Rich pointed out, they're playing against grown men because of some of the rules. He's not getting bullied because again, the guy's still putting up double doubles and also has at least 2 or more blocks per game. So he's finding a way to get stats, but it's that most recent game. He spent most of the time on the bench, and it was Drew Timme of all people that bailed Gonzaga out. And that was, to me, I wanted to see, this was your prove it. You had Amani there, which for those who remember, this was the 1 and 2, really the top 2 overall prospects for the next 2 years before before COVID. So they played against each other just outside, in Ann Arbor at Concordia in AAU. And so there was a lot of hype. That was a televised game. And so they got a chance again a year later. Amani looked improved despite him having a multi-month hiatus.
I wish he had went to MSU.
That team was built.
Well,
for
Double
him.
J, let's look at this. Let's talk about the kid from Gonzaga.
Oh,
Mhm.
Chet, little skinny mini.
I'll ask you both. Name me one player in the last 20 years from Gonzaga that went to the NBA and we said, man, he went to Gonzaga. One player. Name me one. That did their thing. Remember now, basketball, at the college level, basketball is a system thing. And so these are players that are playing in the system. They look good in the system. Unless you're Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, or perhaps from what you're alluding to, this young man that these are phenomenal talents that can play system basketball, but they themselves are the system, if you will. So until and unless you telling me that the young man that's at Gonzaga is like that, when we say is he like that,
Yeah,
now, if he ain't like that, he ain't like that. So
Right
that
now.
would be a wasted number one draft pick. Maybe he's a very good player. Maybe he will be a wonderful pro, a consistent pro. But remember now, there's a difference when you're talking about you going to be drafted number one. And now I understand why the Pistons make those bad picks and the Lions make some of those bad picks, other than like a Cade Cunningham. So we want to keep going with the positive picks like Cade now and pick somebody to go with him, not regress to some of the stuff the Lions and some other Detroit franchises did.
Right now,
go with
in the league, it's only 5. Wait, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players in the NBA from Gonzaga right now.
And I don't know, but one of them. Just one.
Domantas Sabonis right now is the best one that they got. He's got 18 points per game, 12.1 rebounds per game. Then you got people like Brandon Clark. He's at 10 points a game. Zach Collins only at 5. I don't know who some of these other guys is.
What about Hachimura? What's he doing?
That's the one I know, Hachimura.
Hachimura. He got 10 points. And then you got Jalen Suggs for the Magic. He's got 12 points per game, 3 rebounds. So they're not like killing the game, but I mean, they
okay. So that's why, see, you have to look it up because offhand, we don't know, anybody who this came from or where he came from. We all know Kyrie went to Duke, and I didn't even watch but we all know he went to Duke. We all know Cat went to Kentucky. We know that he went to Kentucky. Right, and he was only there a year or something like that. We all know the Kentucky players, we know the Duke players, we know the Carolina. If he went to Carolina,
these are all one and done schools.
Yeah, okay, because we know what we're talking about. You're just talking about fundamentally sound, good basketball players. Nobody's gonna. You got to be really something for somebody to take you at number one if you came from Baylor.
Which leads to my next point with some of the names that we've thrown out here: Chet Holmgren. The kid from Kentucky, and then Paolo from Duke, who's kind of more of a 3 through 5, if you will, certainly 3 to 4.
I keep it at the 3.
Are you using, if you're a general manager in today's game that relies so heavily on the outside, on the 3-point shot? Could you possibly still use a number 1 overall pick on anything but a guard?
Yeah, you got big guys that shooting threes like it's their job now.
If he's Giannis Antetokounmpo, yeah, absolutely.
But I'm saying the center position specifically. Is there a center that you would absolutely take versus a guard in a game that is dependent on perimeter play?
Not off the top of my head, no. I'm not taking.
If he's Joel Embiid, yes. If he's Joel Embiid, why not? Here's what I'm talking about. If I got a player the size of a Joel Embiid or Giannis, these are absolutely big men centers in the traditional way, but their skill set is such that you really cannot limit them. You could see Joel Embiid handling the ball in the offense in an all-star game or something. You could see him doing that and doing it in a fundamentally sound way, but also doing it in a way where you got to look at him and say, well, who can really guard him up there?
You know what? I look at
this. He can get by you. He can do all the things that you ask a guard to do. Whereas if you got a guard and he got to go against a Joel Embiid, get in the middle and create his own shot, you have to be Allen Iverson or you got to be a Kyrie Irving to get that
This
done.
is the Magic Johnson effect.
That's exactly. This is the Magic.
Because Magic Johnson could do all things on the court. He started at center and they won that game. That game Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was like, he started for him and they won. You got players that's starting to come around that's built like that. Now we 7 foot, 7'5", 7'6", 8, 7'7". We balling like guards, but we can still play down low like centers. Like look at Cat. He can play down low with the best of them, but he can also shoot that 3 ball if you leave him in that corner.
But look what Cat also said in an exchange. I sent it to Bro Rich in Barbershop Jay earlier this week. In an exchange with more so of congratulations from John Calipari himself, he said, not only did he correct him intentionally on how many points he scored, but he also stated, because you wouldn't let me shoot threes. So the question becomes, are these coaches stunting their growth, are limiting these guys, these centers' potential, like a Chet even, who he doesn't shoot, he shoots a few, but not very often. He's relied on down low.
He make them when it count. That's what's important. He can still shoot it. He's not like he's a
part. Remember, basketball doesn't have a rule of how tall or how short you need to be to shoot the basketball. The game involves shooting the basketball. So if in today's modern game, it's been developed that you don't limit quote unquote big men to not being able to shoot. Imagine this. Now we know that in the era of Patrick Ewing, he was a big man with a good jump shot. That was the beginning of an understanding. Big men had good jump shots. They worked on it. Now they didn't shoot 3-pointers, but to be able to be a big man and to just not just be a big man, but you are actually a shooter. Because we know there was another time where they were, God rest his soul, Darryl Dawkins was a big man and he couldn't shoot to save his life, right? And so we know Shaq was a big man that could not shoot and could not shoot free throws, and it hindered his game. In the later stages of the game, we know that Shaq became, in some situations, a liability. So to have a big man that can shoot the basketball, whether he can shoot it from 3-point or this, so Cat is saying, look, I always could shoot. I grew up shooting the basketball. I always could shoot. That you just put me in this traditional position where you forbade me from shooting, but it wasn't a matter of whether I could shoot or not. I always could shoot. Yes.
Because that's the expectation. That's what a center was expected to do. What? Get rebounds, play defense, block shots. You weren't expected to shoot threes. You were expected to get the ball, push it out to your outlet. Now the game is starting to change. So you got some coaches that probably don't want to get with the change. I want my center to be centered. I don't want my center on the perimeter. So yes, in terms of Cat, it probably did hurt his game because he was a center that could play on the perimeter. But since he had a coach that wanted to center, I'm not going to even try you out there because this ain't what I want for my team. And Tom Izzo does that a lot too. He ruins players because you're going to do what I want you to do, not what you're actually good at or what you could potentially be good at. You're a point guard. I want you to dribble down, pass the ball. That's what I need you to do. I don't need you to shoot. I need you to do this. If you can't do that, you're not playing. And that's what hurts players.
Wow.
You have to have a coach that's going to be willing to get with the changing of the current game because everybody's shooting now. So if you're a coach that's still holding on to the good old days, you're going to forever hinder your players.
Right.
So Charles Barkley said that he was tired of these low-scoring games in college. And he's an analyst for the tournament, of course, along with of course Kenny Smith and EJ as well. I haven't seen Shaq, but is there have we hit a crossroads that the game is being hindered because of two completely different styles of play when it comes to this stuff? Or to your point, Doc, even with the coaching, that is personally why Imani's not there. I can quote his dad.
That's why he's not there.
In the comments saying, ask, there were two players he mentioned, one was Malik Hall and there was another, Marcus Bingham, as to, why they're not playing their appropriate positions. And that had everything to do with why Imani was personally not there.
Because Tom Izzo don't let you. He don't see your potential and expand that potential. No, he sees you're a good basketball player, and you're gonna do what I say because you're a good basketball player, and I know you can do it.
So have we reached that stage? Because again, we see what Coach Calipari is he's the opposite. Hey, I got you for a year. I'm going to let you do what you do best.
Why we reached that stage, because the NC2A has damaged their own product. But again, I'll keep throwing this word out here as it relates to the NC2A: hypocrisy. They damaged their own product. So now what it's become is you have, again, we go back to this understanding. You have what are ultimately mid-majors, and then you got the pros, the Kentucky, where players understand, I'm only coming to school for 6-7 months, maybe 3 months while I'll be on campus. I'm here to play basketball.
But I guarantee
everybody knows it. The teachers are not looking for me in class. I'm here to play professional basketball. That's what it is.
I guarantee you, those schools you just named off, they let the players play. You go ahead,
they let them play.
You go do it.
You just work on you're just here to play basketball. We're not really concerned about winning the title because we're going to have the top tier players every year. So our merchandise will always be heavy. We're going to have these guys.
Dollar signs.
They're good to go. They're good.
Dollar signs.
And then you got the other teams that are recruiting players who are just good basketball players, and they are not as good as the solo guy that went to Kentucky and the other solo guy that went to Duke and the other solo guy that went to Carolina. So they're not able to field teams anymore. They're fielding stars. They're an all-star team. And their all-star team cannot come together in a cohesive enough manner when it matters come tournament time. So you have the teams that are going to be somewhat, they're closer to what is a team. They're going to do better in a format like this. And so here we go now we're going to find out who's a real coach. This is why we pay attention to coaching during the Final Four, because coaching now matters. What have you done with this talent all year? Let's get it. Here he is. Oh, please. Yeah, we know. He's talking about, oh, please. Dallas is not the draft.
And to answer that question about low scoring games, it's because everybody wants to shoot. They try to shoot themselves out of a slump. Right. When everybody's shooting threes and nobody's making them, of course you're going to have low scoring games. So nobody's taking it to the hole no more. They're not giving it to the big man down low, because guess where the big man down low at?
You shoot
on the wing trying to shoot them threes.
Coaching.
Yep.
And to actually bring up another point of his, he actually was also saying, look, if something's not working, then you change it. Instead, to your point, Doc, they still keep shooting it.
Yeah.
And so
shoot.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it looks like too, something I've caught on to is that you see a whole lot of zone. In the Big Ten, they run a ton of man. And then all of a sudden, sometimes I've always kind of worried that it come to tournament time, does the zone seem to throw them off? And then, of course, now with only a handful of teams remaining, it looks like, again, everybody that's here that's made it this far is running the zone. Why is the zone that effective? Again, this is not just Syracuse, Jim Boeheim. Is it a lack of star power? Is it the love of the jump shot? What is causing, again, what's really the catalyst behind these guys not being able to figure it out? Because
it's that pressure. They can't shoot like that. So when you run zone, it makes it a lot harder to shoot. You don't have to worry about nobody dropping it off down low, because nobody's down low.
Star power, because here's the thing: if you got Ja Morant, he breaks your zone down.
Oh yeah, he get into that basket.
When you're playing against, and this is why zones work in college basketball. Remember, go back and check the tape. North Carolina ran zone, Duke ran zone. Teams go to zone. Historically, they did this in the Final Four. Dean Smith was famous for going to his particular zone when certain parts of the game would come down to it. He did this. They all did this because in college, you're only going to have one or two really phenomenal players on an average team, except again, if you're Kentucky, if you're this. So you put more pressure on that one quote unquote star player. We're going to now we're going to put a zone out here. Now we're going to watch you a little different to see whether you really can shoot, and not just shoot under pressure, where we're really pressing you hard and then we're dropping into the zone on you.
A lot of people can't shoot under pressure.
Fact. and most of them cannot do it under pressure.
And that's why you see all these low scoring games. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, some of these kids, they do hit shots under pressure, but a lot of the threes you see being made in college, that last pass, them wide open in the corner, all good. You know, they can shoot it wide open, but as soon as you put a hand in somebody's face, unless they're, like you said, Brother Rich, that superstar player, 9 times out of 10, it's out.
And I guarantee, I didn't see the game, but if you go watch the game, and maybe I'll go watch the highlights of it. The St. Peter's, this team that just won, that had the upset against
They play
Kentucky.
fundamental basketball.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I guarantee you they played fundamental
basketball.
And that's why there's always such upsets in the NCAA tournament, because a team that's highfalutin and high flying, that doesn't play fundamental basketball, meets a team that's a real team, that's been together, that trusts each other, that has a coach that has them playing fundamental basketball. So this coach is going to be recognized because he is his coaching and what he's done with these players that enables them to pull off that kind of upset.
Yeah, and it's pure unselfish basketball. I mean, I didn't watch the entire game, but you didn't see a lot of people forcing shots. If they didn't have it, we're gonna pass it off, or I'm gonna drop it down low. That they actually shared the ball. Like a lot of these superstar teams that have been dropping down early, they got superstars who don't want to pass. Like you said, shoot or shoot. If I'm cold, I ain't passing to you because I'm the all-star here. I'm gonna shoot this ball.
And this is not new. This is baskall. You can check
they shooting themselves out.
UNL. This happened with UNLV. This happened with Houston. All of these teams. My Georgetown Hoyas experienced this, where you got this collection of superstars, and everything is lined up for you to win, and then somebody named Villanova comes along, or NC State comes along, and they play team ball, and they create a big upset in the tournament. This is what the tournament has always given us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
fundamental ball wins every time.
And so actually, that coach, I really do hope that he, if you looked at the stats of how much money goes into Kentucky's program versus theirs, it was I think there was just north of $1 million in the entirety of the basketball program. So what I'm hoping for is that this guy, regardless of the outcome in the next round or just the remainder of the tournament in general, uses this as an opportunity to hopefully get on somebody else's radar, because right now I feel like we've talked about it often with the same recycling of coaches. So seeing this new young guy, New York product, of course, and so it may be no surprise to Bro Rich that he's got a basketball mind and he's doing what he did. So but hopefully he'll get an opportunity here at a bigger program, because certainly when you go and knock off a team like that, that's to me, that was no, I get it. It was an upset, but the manner in which they took it into overtime. This is where they had every excuse in the world to collapse, and they kept battling back. They were down, they were up the majority of the game. And then all of a sudden now they're down 7, and then they come back in like a 2-minute span. It was unbelievable. And then even the way that they beat Murray State is what really impressed me, because you brought up fundamentals, but more importantly, the way they shared the ball, and how they just it was something that you don't see enough of anymore. And I loved him when he was very in his TV timeout segment. He answered. He said, "We're playing like crap, and we need to get back to doing what we do." And I'm going to address that right now. And they never looked back in that game, and they were up by 4, I believe, at the time when he was being asked for that. So definitely a big shout out to him. Moving forward, final thoughts. I'm going to let you guys call it out now. There's 17 teams left as we speak. Who do you got? Who's now that a weekend has came and went? Who's your pick to win it all?
I'm going with my boy Chet.
Oh,
I know it probably won't happen, but let's go, Chet. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. Chet needs Zags. We're going to get it.
Did Michigan advance?
They did.
They did. With Michigan.
And again, as our host pointed out, kudos to Juwan Howard on
Yes.
you know,
with Michigan. They should have
And
been there
embrace
last
the
year.
Tennessee player.
I'm staying with him. I'm going with coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, they have, speaking of coaching, they have a good one. All of them are going to be good kind of moving forward here. A date with Villanova and Jay Wright, obviously, you know, product of,
Yeah.
of national titles. So, with that being said, it's been fun, but we got to run. I know Purdue has about 16 minutes left to go, so I'm going to go catch the end of that one.
Purdue.
Oh man.
Good luck. Good luck.
Believe me. And so, you know, from my man B Rich, the doc, our host with the most that's you know, driving up north.
Coming back from Dallas.
That's right. I'm Double J, and we'll see you guys next week.
Holla.